This is Magnus from Abhorration, and I'll see you at the Tampa Morgue.
What's up? This is Tony, and you're listening to the Tampa Morgue Season 3, Episode 110. And as always, from his studio deep in Tampa Bay, Florida, Mr. Ed Webb. What's up, Mr. Webb?
Mr. Anderson, what's up, brother?
Episode 110. We are back on here. Like we were saying, we feel like we just did a show the other day.
Yeah, seems that way, doesn't it? Seems that way every week.
It does, but tonight's going to be a busy show. Plus, we're actually going to read a letter that we got because we were trying to figure out when we were going to do this. So we have a couple emails that we're supposed to read, and I got this like 2 weeks ago. So I figured it was kind of a good time since the episode that we're going to be doing tonight. We opened up the show with Aberration, Demonolatry, the song from the album Demonolatry that came out on Invictus Productions September 27th, 2024. And we're going to be joined by Magnus, the guitarist and vocalist of Aberration. He was also in Condor, Hecatomb, and Mayans Hill. We're going to have him on here in about probably like 25 minutes. So when I got this email and I knew he was coming on, I figured this would be a perfect time. I actually talked to Magnus a couple months ago about coming on, and he has a newborn. So we're trying to figure it out around some of the touring he was doing with Aberration, some of the shows he was doing, and we finally made it work. So definitely looking forward to that. A great band out of Norway. We've had a lot of, as we said last week, had Norwegian bands on here the last couple months. We had Knife on episode 92, Heimland on episode 90. We had Deathhammer on. We had Sergeant Salston, which is an awesome episode, 104. And tonight we have Aberration. So we're definitely looking forward to that. But Ed, how's everything going in Webland over there?
Oh, it's great. It's always great. There's always something going on in my life. You know my personal life, man. I tell you on a daily basis. Kid's truck's
Yeah.
broke down. Daddy has to figure out a way to fix it. That's the way it works in my house. I'm driving my wife to work at fucking 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
My life rules.
I actually did the whole, wake up and watch some hockey last night. I'm a New Jersey Devils fan. I'm from New Jersey, and, woke up till stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning, watched them lose in the last 3 minutes, and, you know,
Well, it was
feeling it today.
exciting. It was exciting because the fucking Philadelphia Eagles lost. That
I
was that
saw
was the
that, yeah.
excitement of my night. So
We have a bunch of shit to get to tonight. We have the guest on. We're gonna talk about upcoming shows, musicians who passed away, releases. So I guess, do you wanna start with the letter?
do it.
Okay. This is from Ricardo. Hello, Ed and Tony. This is Ricardo. I am a 28-year-old metalhead who was raised on classic rock and eventually found my way to the underground. I tune in every week and have been introduced to many bands from the Tampa Morgue that I've added to my collection. Bands like Nocturnal, Violenter, Morgul, Heimland, and Urn. I had never taken the time to explore until now. I wanted to ask Tony, since his taste seems to be the same as mine. No offense, Ed, and I am looking forward to the new monstrosity. Oh, and I'm a big fan of Supreme Evil from Diabolic. Are there any bands, Tony, that you would recommend that you have not had on the show yet? So I saved this letter because of the band that's coming on tonight, Aberration, from Norway. So I definitely recommend that, and you're going to hear why when you listen to this episode. So that's why we took us a little bit of time to read this email, because when I got it, I was kind of trying to lock up Magnus. So I think you check out the band tonight, and I think it's a perfect example of a killer band that you may not be aware of. And Ed, as you hear, he's looking forward to the new monstrosity, which I've actually got a few emails about that I obviously asking us when it's going to be released, and we cannot tell them that.
No, I cannot. I asked the boss again, so the boss, he smacked me twice, and he told me no. Basically, it's coming out the beginning of the year. I can't give you an exact date, but the beginning of the year, meaning the first couple months, it will be out. And there are big things. Like I'm hearing like it's going to be pretty. There's a lot of things that are going to come out in conjunction with it, tours, all that stuff. So as soon as I get the word, you guys will be one of the first to hear it. I promise. I've already, Lee has already agreed to that with me, and hopefully we'll get Lee on here too at some point, and you know, make it official. But yes, it is coming out. That I can promise you.
Yeah, and like you said, we do plan on getting Lee on here. Actually, Lee helped out me and Ed with a project we're working on. He laid down some drums for us on a project called Crooked Casket that we'll have more information about once we get the rest of the vocals recorded, guitars and stuff like that. But that's our plan, is to get Lee on here, and Ed will be able to share more information. And Supreme Evil, Ed, anything you can say about that Diabolic record for Ricardo that you remember, the recording process?
It was a good record. It was probably one of the few times that I did some recording like in a studio where it felt natural. Because nowadays everybody comes in at their own times, does their own thing and whatever. But back then we were all in the studio at the same time, like through the whole thing. Everybody sat there from day one through drums, vocals. I mean, it was just, you were there. And yeah, it was a great experience. And Audio Lab, working with Greg, rest in peace, Greg. It's a great record. To this day, I do say it's a great record, great songs. Yeah, it's awesome. It was an awesome time.
You have a favorite track off of that you were part of?
There's a couple of them. Ancient Hatred's probably, because we used to play that song all the time. So that's probably that. And believe it or not, Subterranean, the actual Supreme Evil, the cut, because it's just such a heavy riff at the end, the way it starts. So probably those two would be neck and neck for my favorite tracks.
And also, Ricardo mentioned on here Heimland, and I actually talked to Eric from Heimland today. They have a new record coming out. Before it comes out, we'll have those guys pop on here for a bit. They were on here, like I said, episode number 90, the name of the new record. I actually got a hold of Eric to make sure I was going to pronounce this right, which I'm sure I'll still fuck up probably. Datuve Myrtelhav is the name of their new record, and we'll have Eric and the guys hopefully on before it comes out. But I want to thank them. But yeah, Heimland's a killer band, man. I first saw them. I went to go see Take here in Vilnius, and they were opening up, and yeah, it was a killer performance, man. And one more thing he has on his letter: P.S. Keep it underground. The Morgue is a rare breed. And who did the Morgue logo? And that was Ipiot, who does. Me and Ed have worked with Ipiot for many, many years with our bands in the past, Flesh Reaper, Generic Christ. He's actually going to be doing the Crooked Casket demo cover. He does work for, just a shitload of bands, right? Obituary, he's done stuff for now.
Massacre. He did stuff for the Massacre when I was in the band. Yep.
Yeah, so it's Ipiot from awesome. 5 milligrams. Yeah, good artist, man. But so thank you, Ricardo. We appreciate you. He's writing us from Portugal too. I don't know if I mentioned that, but definitely appreciate the letter. Sorry we waited a little bit to read it. I thought it would be a good episode to put it on since we have Abhorration coming on tonight. And like I said, we have a lot of shit to get to. It's been a busy couple weeks. We had Vincent Corrali on a couple weeks ago from Asheron. I see Vincent's been doing a lot of stuff. Episode 108 he was on. We had Black Venom on last week from Flame out of Finland. He also played in Adorier. Negative Plane, we had Ed Miller on recently too. So it's been, we have a lot of stuff in the works. I can announce we have a few guests that we're talking to right now that I'm going to mention a few of them because I've, pretty much guarantee they're going to be on here. But there's a couple we won't mention yet, but we have Creature Feature Hall of Fame host Count Gordeval, who will make another appearance this month. Friend of the show. Me and Ed have grew up watching him, and he'll be back. This will be his third appearance. And Necro Terror from Cadaveric Incubator out of Finland. We're working on getting him on. There's a couple more guests too. I don't want to mention it until we nail it down. But as always, we're keeping busy, man, right? Pretty soon Ed's going to be on the road, and we'll be doing shows when Ed's on tour too. So there's going to be so much dynamics we're going to add to this, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, Ed, what do you want to do? So I say I'm going to play a song before we do this, but I say we do the Death Metal Dave Tampa Bay Museum of Metal promo that everyone's heard. We know a lot recently, because it's coming up in February, which again, me and Ed will be in attendance. Ed was there last year. It's going to get better every year, so we'll be there this year. We can run that promo, do the releases and musicians who passed away, and then Ed has releases, and Ed will mention some shows. What do you think, Ed? Do we get to the promo and the song?
I say we do it. In your face.
Yeah, we're going to get the Death Metal Dave promo. Before we're going to do that, we're going to play Hecatomb. We're going to play Black Winged Pestilence, do shows, and then we're going to get Magnus on from Abhorration. Ed's going to have to leave us tonight, just so everybody knows. Ed's wife. Yeah, Ed, before we do this, let's mention, last year I got Ed in trouble at the household. Ed's wife's birthday and their anniversary is this week. So it happens to be falling on this day of the interview. So Ed's going to have to step out. So because last year,
Just
Ed,
for a
I got you a
little
little bit of a bind.
Well, we were on vacation, and I had set up to do a show, and then we got stiffed. So that was
That's
the
right. That's right.
that was the, you know, everybody was upstairs because I had rented this condo, and they're all upstairs watching TV and playing video games, and I'm at this dining room table waiting on our guest for an hour that never showed up. It worked out. We don't have to say who it was, but he
Yeah, he
wound up
came
coming
back
on.
on. It was a scheduling
Yeah, he came back
problem.
on, and it all worked out. But my wife was like, "You had to do this on our fucking vacation." But now, in all fairness, a year later, she gets it. You know what I mean? Because it was literally last year. Like literally last year. Like it was like because we went to that Halloween Horror Nights at SeaWorld. That was like literally 6 weeks, almost to the day after my hip surgery. We were on vacation. So I think it was the 10th. Literally right this week. So yeah. So unfortunately, I'm married 25 years. Not unfortunately, the day we're doing the interview falls
About digging a
in
grave.
25 years anniversary to my wife, and her birthday is the next day. So unfortunately, we had already made some plans for a couple hours to eat during the interview. So I will be back, but it will be for us to end the show.
Yeah, and
So
it's all like I said.
unfortunately,
It's sometimes we we can get the guests on, we bring them on. We have
have to do
sometimes
it.
it's like we
The cool thing about it is I will be listening to this episode because I haven't heard this interview coming up. So I will check it out because when I miss them, I don't listen to myself. If I'm there, I'm not listening to it. You know, sometimes I do, but this one I will definitely, because I will not be able to partake. So it should be killer because you've been telling me this is the guy. So
I've been
I'm
trying to
ready.
get him on for a while, man. And he has totally gave me the thumbs up right away. I just had to figure out when we can make it happen, and happened to be on Ed's anniversary and his wife's birthday. But you know, like we got, it's how it works sometimes. But yeah, Ed will be
we'll
back
get
at the end of the show. So
Yep.
hang
So
out.
let's get it all going so that we can get him on.
Yeah, and plus also, guys, I forgot to mention Bloody F Mess, you know, from Bloody Mess and the Scabs, and hung out with Gigi Allen, played in bands with him. He'll be coming on sometimes this month also. We're going to, before we get Magnus on, like I said, we're going to do a couple things. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue after this track. This is Hecatomb-Black Pestilence, and then we'll roll the Death Metal Dave Tampa Bay Museum ad. Be back on the Tampa Morgue after this track.
What's up, Tampa Morgue listeners? This is Death Metal Dave from the Tampa Bay Museum of Metal. And I'd like to ask you to join us on February the 7th at Magnanimous Brewery, Seminole Heights, where we're going to have a killer display of Florida metal history. Backdrops, guitars, drums, clothing, you name it, we're going to have it. And it's pretty freaking cool, man. Come out and support the metal and drink our Tampa Bay Museum of Metal beer. And always listen to Tampa Morgue with Tony and Ed. Bitches. Death Metal Dave. In your face.
As many of our regular listeners know, that's Dave Allison, a.k.a. Death Metal Dave from the Tampa Bay Museum of Metal. For more information, visit www.tampabaymuseumofmetal.com. There you will find a bunch of Florida and Tampa Bay metal history that dates back to 1982 and takes you to the current day. Me and Ed will be hanging out at the exhibit in February, so hope to see you there. And before that, we played some Hecatomb. We played Black Winged Pestilence from the Horrid Invocations demo that came out on March 27th, 2020. It came out on tape independently in 2020 and then came out on Invictus Productions out of Ireland. They put it out on CD and 12-inch in 2021. Has 4 tracks on it. Band is from Melbourne, Australia, and is made up of Magnus on vocals, guitars, bass, and drums, and Rick Warkill on guitars. We'll be joined by Magnus, as we told you earlier, in about 10 minutes. We'll be talking about Hecatomb and his current band Abhorration and a lot more. So that'll be taking place here in a few. We're looking forward to that. And I'm going to do what we always do on this show. I am going to promo the Tampa Morgue. So as always, anybody who listens regularly, sit back and we'll get this over with as fast as possible. Anybody who is new to the show, thanks for checking it out. You can find us on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically wherever you listen to podcasts. We put the audio up on YouTube. We do no video. We never will do video, but you can find the audio there. We're not big on YouTube because we're not, as we always say, we're not influencers. We're not personalities on this show. We are a show that basically documents band's history. But you can go back and listen to a bunch of prior episodes we've done. This is episode 110, so you can go back and listen to 109 old episodes. We have interviews with the guys from Morbid Saint. We got Dave from Mortis Scold, Lee Payne from Cloven Hoof, Gene from Angel Corpse and Perdition Temple, Henry from God Dethroned. We have Pat from Hell Witch on the show. We have Witch Trap out of Columbia, Tony Dolan from Venom Inc. and Venom, John Walker of Cancer. These are all deep dive interviews, by the way, so it's not your usual 20-minute promo. These are, this goes through the band's history. King Fally of Deceased, Jeff Manis of Venom, and that's, as people know who have heard it, it's a 5-hour interview. But as we always say, if you're a Venom fan, definitely a must listen. We have Dovidus from Lithuanian's Black Death thrash band, Uctus and Crypts of Despair, Terry Butler from Obituary, Death, Massacre, Denial Fiend. Bunch of old Tampa Bay history in that interview, bunch of great Death history. Definitely a must listen if you're a Death fan. We had Ritual Butcher from Arc Goat on the show. We had Eric from Goat Seaman out of Peru on the show a few weeks ago. Luciferian Rights out of Mexico. Nigel Rocket from Onslaught. We had Paul Speckman on from Master. Harry Quokinen from Hooded Menace and Hail Conjurer. Morgul out of Finland. We had Dawn of the Dead from Nunslaughter on the Tampa Morgue. Alessio from Violenter, Hobbs Angel of Death, Adam of Cardiac Arrest, Lord Sabathan from Morbid Death, Slaughter Messiah, and Enthroned. We had Revik from Mordant Red, Bobby Gustafson from Overkill. We had John Berry from Ancient Rites, Slaughter Messiah. He hung out for a couple hours. David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in the Terrifier films, he hung out for probably about 2 hours, I think it was. Snowy Shaw from King Diamond, Merciful Fate. We also had Blood Serpent out of Vietnam on the show. Udo from Accept. The Rods we had on here. Kyle Thomas of X-Hoarder, Trouble, Floodgate. We had Alan Howarth on, who did the music for Star Trek, Prince of Darkness, Halloween. He worked with John Carpenter, some really good stories on that. Sergeant Salston from Deathhammer out of Norway. We had Infernal and Odin from Disaster on the show. Daniel Avenger we had on here from Angel of Damnation and Nocturnal and a bunch of other bands. We also had Luisma on from Hemorrhage. We had Martin Missy on from Protector. We had Rob on from Lucifericon and Destroyer 666. Like I said, 9 old episodes. Feel free to go check them out. You can always contact us at thetampamorgue@gmail.com. We will respond. Instagram is probably the best place to keep up with us, where we update our future guests. It's pretty much the most active thing we have. We do have a Facebook, but we really, we throw stuff up there, but it's not our main thing. We're going to do what we always do on the show. We're going to mention the musicians who passed away, going to mention some upcoming releases or releases from this week. Yeah, and then Ed, you can tell me what you have for releases, and then we'll get to our guest, Magnus from Aberration. Musicians who passed away: Lance Collier, 66 years old, an American bassist from the bands After the Sun, Dead East Garden, and Savage. Next, we have a 52-year-old guitar player from the Netherlands, Vincent van Boxton, who played in the band Anthropomorphia. He lost a battle with cancer at the age of 52. Stephen Wayne Finchman, a.k.a. Ace Finchman, 64-year-old drummer from the UK, played in Tiger Tails USA, Angel Witch in 2001 to 2002. He also played in Idle Threat, Tiger Tails, Tokyo Blade, and Treason. He passed away at 64. So we always like to pay some respect to the musicians who passed away on the show. And next, we're going to go to releases here. I have a few. We're going to be on next week, so we'll read some more. But these are some of the ones that were sent to us. We always appreciate that. We actually had the guitarist Satyris on the show probably about 3 weeks ago. Band called Luctus out of Kaunas, Lithuania, which is actually the city I live in Europe. They have a new record coming out that's called Tam Socia. It's coming out on Infernal Profundus Records out of Lithuania. Luctus formed in 2001, put out the band's first release, a demo titled My Sorrow in the Lifeless Landscapes. Luctus has released 3 demos, 1 EP, 2 splits, 1 comp, and 1 live album, and this will be the band's 5th full length. Luctus features members past and present of Crypts of Despair, Fuck Off and Die, and Legion. And this was released on October 9th. Wretched Death out of San Diego, death grind band. The name of the record is Sanity is a Curse. It's an independent release. Wretched Death formed in 2003 and put out the band's first release in 2023 titled Moribund. Wretched Death also put out a full-length and EP in 2024. And Sanity is a Curse came out on October 10th. Vile Apparition, an Australian death metal band. Malignity is the name of this one, coming out on Sako on Ojo out of the UK. Vile Apparition formed in 2017. The band's first release was a demo in 2017 titled Atrocious Captivity. The band also put out a split with Poland's Incinerator in 2018 and a full length in 2019 titled Depravity Ordained. This upcoming release will be the band's second full length. Malignity was released on October 10th. And next I have Altar Ablaze from Czechia, black death metal band. The name of this one is Indiscriminate Extermination on Lava Dome Productions out of Czechia. Altars Ablaze formed in 2020. Their first release was a 2022 full-length titled Life Desecration that was also released in 2022. The EP Indiscriminate Extermination has 3 tracks. The band features members past and present of Brutality Deceased, Cult of Fire, Garbage Disposal, Despise, and Heaving Earth. And this one came out on Lava Dome Productions October 10th. All Hell, the black thrash punk band from Asheville, North Carolina, is putting out an album called Sunsetter. And Sunsetter is coming out on Terminus Hate City Records out of Atlanta, Georgia. All Hell formed in 2013, put out a 3-song demo in 2013 also. The band's first full length was 2014's The Devil's Work. In total, the band has put out an EP, and this will be the band's 5th full length. Sunsetter came out on October 10th. Reaping Flesh, the black thrash metal band from Norway, is releasing Death Creeps. It's an independent release. Reaping Flesh formed in 2020. The band's first release was a full length in 2022 that was self-titled. The new album came out on October 10th and has 8 tracks on it. And to wrap it up, Humanity Zero, a death doom metal band from Greece. Cursed Be the Gift of Life is the name of this one on Satanatha Records out of Georgia, not the state, the country. Humanity Zero formed in 2003. First release was a demo in 2008 that was self-titled. In total, the band has put out 2 demos, 1 EP, and Cursed Be the Gift of Life will be the band's 6th full length. It has 5 tracks and is out October 15th. And Mr. Webb, what do you have over there for releases?
As far as releases for myself, I only have one, and it's something that me and you have talked about a couple times over the last couple weeks, but it's the New Testament. It's called Parabellum, and I have to tell you, like the new Megadeth, these dudes, being as old as they are, they just do not disappoint. I mean, I listened to the record this morning, and I mean, if you like Testament, you're gonna like it. I think the new drummer is trying to do something, like trying to show up Gene Hoglan or something, because the drums are like crazy on it. They just sound crazy killer. Like, not saying Gene Hoglan, obviously we know he fucking absolutely crushes, but this dude's stepping into some serious shoes. Dave Lombardo, who played in Testament, you know, all the bigwigs that have played in Testament, this dude's coming in after Gene Hoglan, so I'm pretty sure he's like, fuck it, I mean, there's blast beats all over the record, so it's killer. They 1 minute they sound like they're playing black metal, then they're doing a ballad like on Practice What You Preach, then they're doing the typical Testament, and Chuck's vocals are just all over the place. And you know, I don't know. There's even Peterson is doing backing vocals a lot more now, and they're black metal-y. So while Chuck's doing the lows, he's doing the highs, and it sounds killer. I dig the New Testament, but yeah, definitely was excited to hear it, and it did not disappoint at all.
I think the only track I heard from that was the first single was Shadow People.
Now, the first one was called AI. It was called AI. I forget what it was called.
It was like,
Infanticide AI. That was the first track they released, and the Shadow People was the second one.
okay, so I heard Shadow People.
Yeah, the Infanticide AI is the one where they come right out of the gate with like fucking blast beats and shit. It's definitely, like I said, they've been doing this shit a long time, you know, and it's can't be easy to just keep writing albums. Plus, it's 10 songs, 50 minutes. So that's 5-minute songs. To write a 5-minute song and not be boring is not easy, as you know, because we hate when we write songs, you know, we don't like to write fucking long songs at all. So, but yeah, it's definitely killer. I would definitely check it out. If you're a fan of Testament, I don't think you'll be disappointed.
yeah, I mean, like I said, the first song I heard was definitely reminded me. It's like you said, I felt like I was listening to Testament, you know, from back in the
It's
day.
Chuck. I think a
Yeah.
lot of it's Chuck Billy because his voice still is strong as fuck. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, even the we talked about the Megadeth last week. Dave's voice still sounds killer. Like, you know, some of these guys, you listen to them, and to me, it's like some of the, like when we think about the power metal bands or the hair bands, some of those guys like Vince or Stephen Pearcy, they can't fucking sing at all. But these dudes who are like literally screaming for a living, Overkill, Bobby, I mean, you know, it's just these guys are
Yeah,
just
Bobby still sounds great. I mean,
they all still sound fucking killer. And some of the live shows I've seen with Slayer lately, Tom's voice during Angel of Death, he's fucking almost getting that scream. Like, I'm like, where was that? But I guess when you do fucking 30 shows in a row, you know, I get it. You know, a lot of it's hard on the voice, but you know, Tom sounds better than ever. But they're just doing a bunch of one-off shows, so it makes sense. His voice isn't getting crushed. But yeah, I mean, and I heard the tour with Terry and Obituary, and the Testament tour over there is going killer. So a lot of sold out shows, and according, you know, those dudes in Obituary, every day their really social media, you know, presence is big, and every day they're putting up pictures of the shows, and I'm like, man, it has to be killer to get to fucking play those shows. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. Black Label Society, all the bands they've got to play with and booked packed
Slayer,
shows.
you know.
Slayer, yeah, man. I mean, it's just that those guys are doing it right. And yeah. Speaking
And
of
speaking of
Obituary,
shows,
speaking of shows and Obituary, they are coming to Florida in December. Let's see, I'll give you the dates. They're playing Destin on December 5th at Club LA, Jacksonville on 12/6 at Albatross, in Orlando on 12/7 at the Conduit, Miami on 12/12 at Gramps, which I've played there. It's a killer club. And then Tampa, 2 days, the 13th and 14th, both days at the Brass Mug. And they're playing with Intoxicated, Castrator, and Cold Steel. So that should be, you know, anytime they play Tampa, they sell out both nights. So just plan on if you're going to get a ticket, you better get a ticket early.
Yeah, instead of everybody staying online and fighting with each other and calling each other names and everything, why don't you go to a show and check out Obituary? You know,
Yeah.
you have some options.
Yeah.
But
We won't use the words I've seen lately, but yeah, go to a show, go fight each other, and then whoever's the winner gets that trophy.
yeah,
All right. And then tomorrow, this is going up tonight. So tomorrow, Dave Ellefson and his band, Kings of Thrash, are playing the Brass Mug. So that
Jeff
should
Young,
be,
obviously.
yeah, should be a cool show, man. I've seen some videos from the shows they've been doing. It sounds like Megadeth musically. I don't know about the singer so much, but definitely musically. Ellefson, he's the only thing I think is missing from the new Megadeth, in my opinion, that bass tone.
I think too, if it's the last Megadeth, they should have bought him in, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I know politics, there's money. It's all about money, I'm sure. Because, if you bring in Ellefson, he's got to get paid because he's one of the original cats, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, and let's see here. The last show I have is at the Orpheum on 10/22. It's 200 Stab Wounds. I've heard them. I mean, if you like that brutal heaviness, you will dig them. And it looks like they're playing with Ingrown, No Cure, and Bastardane. And that's
I haven't heard any. I haven't even heard 200 Stab Wounds. Isn't that crazy?
No,
I've heard the name a bunch of times, but I still have not heard it. But I see their name everywhere.
Yep, they've been making a push. That's what happens, right? You open up for the right band, and you get to get your tour out, get to tour.
And Ed, I mean, let's get Magnus on. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm done talking. Let's do that.
Yeah, Ed's got a little funk going on in the lungs.
Yeah, not just that. I have a wife that's about to yank me by my ponytail.
That's right. It's anniversary night. So we opened up the show with Demonolatry. Then we played Black-Winged Pestilence from Hecatomb. We wanted to give everybody a taste of like all the projects that Magnus has been involved with. So now we're going to go to Condor before we get him on here. This is Condor-Embraced by the Evil from the Unstoppable Power album that came out on High Roller Records on March 9th, 2017. I'm definitely looking forward to this interview. I'll tell you the truth. I don't think you can find really one real full interview with Magnus, audio interview anywhere. I haven't seen it yet, so I may be wrong, but personally, as a fan of the band, I haven't found it. So definitely going to be cool to have him on. And Magnus from Abhorration is going to be joining us. First, we're going to play one of his previous bands, Condor. This is Embraced by the Evil off the Unstoppable Power album. Be back on the Tampa Morgue with Magnus after this track.
The force of violence, the creator of good. He is the unstoppable power. possession. You are embraced by evil.
And that was Condor with Embraced by the Evil. And we are joined by Magnus tonight. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Of course, of course.
You know, I know you guys, you've been busy as shit, dude. You just finished the Demon Worship tour.
Yeah, it was with the Har from, I guess, from Israel, but they live in Berlin now. So it was 9 shows, I believe, with them. And really good guys, a really cool band. I'd never heard it before. I don't think it has been much written about them for in a while, at least. But it was really cool. Great people.
You guys played what? Berlin, Prague, and Paris, Denmark.
Yeah, and a few went to Zurich and Antwerp, Groningen, Kiel. I think that's it.
Was there a standout show to you?
Yeah, for sure. The Kieltown show was the best one. Luckily, we had a couple of misses as well. When we went to Zurich from Vienna, then we drove for 11 hours, and in the morning as well, then the van was towed. So we arrived on a Monday at 9, I believe, in the evening. Then people started going home already. So when we finished, I think we started at 11 o'clock. And when we were done, there was probably 12 people left. Yeah, that was a bit rough.
You know, and is it hard, you know, I was talking to you before you came on. Is it hard for you to leave your family, man? Because you're a young dad. You're like 31, man. It's like all new to you. Is it hard for you to take off for a certain amount of period of time?
Yeah, it's every time it's a bit harder than I thought it would be. Of course, it's a thing for me, at least when I have a kid. Sometimes you just can't wait to go away for a while, and within 2 hours, then you miss them. Yeah, it's harder than I expected.
Yeah, because like what, you go away, and I've had this experience. You kind of go away, and then the next thing you know, you're looking at their pictures like an hour later.
Yeah, and then you're hungover in the van, and all you do is just you sit there and watch videos and look at pictures.
Yeah, definitely. And so, you know, and okay, we'll start, you know, how we do the show. We kind of go through your childhood up to where you are now. So you're born in Bolton, Norway in 94?
Yeah, that's right. I'm from Kolbotn. Same as Arild, the guitarist, is also from there. And like growing up there, when I grew up, what was cool was playing in bands, playing instruments. I guess all the boys started doing that, and then gradually everyone else quit, and then it was just me and the Condor guys left. So luckily we kept it going.
Like, what, 15, 20 minutes away from Oslo?
Yeah, about, I reckon it's a 20-minute drive or so.
And so, like, do you remember, like, not even, like, obviously not rock and metal when you're really little, but do you remember the first piece of music that actually caught your attention, whether it be something your parents were playing on the radio or, like, Norwegian children's songs, whatever that may be?
The first thing I can remember being into, I'm not sure if I was into it or if I just thought I was into it because my big brother was, but Michael Jackson, I remember being the first piece of music that I mentioned that I liked, at least.
And are you from a musical household in general?
No, not at all. Like my dad, he's definitely into music, but he's born in the late 50s, and I guess through the years, I think he was into what was in at the time. So he knows a lot about a lot of music, but it's like the 70s music is kind of left in the 70s, I think. But I went through his record collection when I was a kid, and I found a bunch of good stuff there. Got into David Bowie and Uriah Heep and Yes and a lot of those 70s classics.
So that might actually bleed over into the next question. Do you kind of remember the first CD or tape or record that you actually owned, or, I guess you could say purchased, or, actually, held on to and kind of kept in every regard, so to say?
Yeah, I think the first CD that I remember buying, I think it was Gorillaz. I can't remember what the record or the CD was called. It was something that was cool when I was a kid in the early 2000s. I remember I bought it at the market in Thailand when I was there with my family. I think that was the first one that I bought. And then I had my brother, he like ripped a few CDs from me with the Norwegian hip hop and that sort of stuff.
How's the record store selection when you're a young kid growing up there? Do you guys have a decent amount of options?
Well, there was nothing in Kolbotn. There was a record shop, one of those like franchise or the record shops that were all over the country at the time in Ski, which was maybe a 30-minute train ride. So when I was like 10, 11, 12, we would go there. Me and my friend would go there about every weekend, and we would go and find CDs that looked good and listen to them there, and most likely not buy anything because we couldn't afford it. But then once in a while, of course, you would. But there was nothing in Kolbotn.
In your hometown, you guys had what, 2 youth centers, right? And you guys had where you guys could have like options to go into rehearsal rooms and like, instruments to jam on and stuff?
Yeah. That's what got it started for me, and I would think that's what got it started from all of, I guess, my and the slight previous generation, because we had 2 youth centers in Kolbotn and Tornåsen, the neighboring towns, and the guys who ran those youth centers both played in bands and played instruments. So I think they're the ones that kind of got us started with it, and we had rehearsal rooms in both of them you could use for free. They had instruments and everything. And I even remember Arild, the guitarist in Abhorration, when I was maybe 11, he came, I guess he was a big 17-year-old for us then. He came and showed us how to use like the recording equipment and everything. So everything was definitely laid out for us to start doing it.
You had what? There was 2 owners of the place, right? One was a drummer, and one of the guys actually put on festivals there?
Yeah. The guy who ran the one that wasn't in like my suburb or town, but the neighboring one, he runs a festival now. That's called Hellbotn, which has some decent bands. Even I think even Sodom played there, Destruction played there. We played there this year with a few other pretty good bands. Also Inferno with the original singer for the first time there this year. So it's a pretty good festival.
Was that the show? I think we were talking before we came on. Sergeant Salston came on our show the same day. I think he was going out to see you guys play at the festival.
Yeah, because I saw Inferno twice before, I think, but that was with Daniel, Sergeant Salston on vocals. Of course, the best replacement you could get. But I was fucking gobsmacked when I saw Hazardous Pussy Desecrator earlier this year. he hasn't played a single metal show in, I think, 20 years. And he was just as rabid and brutal as he's always been, apparently. There's no video clips or anything of the band live from back in the days. I've never even seen the guy, but he was so good.
Now you see videos of everything, right? You see videos of every band. You see like what they're eating for lunch or what. Do you think that's something that's kind of takes away from the back of the day where you only saw the vinyl covers, right? You flip over the thing, you see the band picture. This is the only image you have. Now it's totally different.
Yeah, I actually saw a couple of years ago. I used to live in Melbourne in Australia, and I saw that one of my friends there had an argument with John Cyrus from Agent Steel on Facebook, and that was a bit of a bummer. I thought that shouldn't be possible.
And as you know, you mentioned, this youth center and stuff. So you first picked up the guitar at 10. You got one as a gift for Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. Louder, it was called. I think it was I think it was the Gibson version of Squire, like the cheap ones, from my parents when I was 10 for Christmas. I wanted to start playing bass for some reason, but they gave me a guitar, which I'm pretty happy about now.
And are you self-taught?
I went to a teacher for about a year, I think, when I was 10. He he was 13, I think. And then when that stopped, I went to the youth center sort of thing for maybe another year. But once I knew how to play power chords and to play fast, it wasn't really that interesting anymore, learning anything else. Which is probably why I still can't play guitar solos.
And you're also at 10, right? You get majorly into is that the Metallica period for you?
Yeah, for sure. Loads of Metallica, all of Metallica.
And then now you're so you have a lot of influences, but I know Morbid Angel's one of them. What, Trey and Richard Brunel was a big thing for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think I guess along with Hanneman and Kerry King, they're the best guitar duo of all time, in my opinion. But of course, they're not an inspiration for me, technically, because I'm so far away from playing anything like that. But musically, for sure.
What were some of your gateway bands? When I say that, I mean you've obviously started Metallica. What is it next? Like Slayer, maybe the I don't know, Overkills, the Megadeths, and what is the first song you actually learned how to play straight through?
Oh, I think that would have been probably Seek and Destroy. And I think Metallica, of course, major gateway band, Slayer, and believe it or not, actual Obliteration, Arild's band. Necrosounds came out. I was 15, and I think that's when I realized what death metal could be. That it didn't have to be guttural vocals, down-tuned, and all that sort of stuff. I understood that it could be punky and trashy as well. But then I think the main gateway band for me was definitely Aura Noir. I remember I saw another kid that was 3 years older than me, which was a lot at the time. He was wearing a Dreams Like Desert shirt, or a sweater, actually, a hoodie. And it said the world's ugliest band on the back. I remember it vividly, and then I thought it was at McDonald's. And I thought I had to check it out, and then I bought The Merciless on CD. And that was it. That's my gateway into underground metal.
What did you start actually learning about where you're from in Norway? Some of the, the darker bands, so to say, like the Norwegian scene that was, the Burzums.
Well, me and Herman, the first drummer in Condor, of course, Condor being named after an Aura Noir song. We started playing in that band when we were 15, I think. And it's kind of when we started playing, then we got Christopher along after maybe a year or so. And he was very knowledgeable for a 16-year-old. He knew everything. He knew Poison. He showed us that. He showed us Possessed. He showed us Autopsy. And of course, Dark Throne. And we had heard Dark Throne and Mayhem and the Norwegian ones, but he's the one who kind of probably brought it forth for us. So yeah, 15, I'd say, we started getting into it.
And were you into any of I know Morbid Angel definitely, but were you into any of say the Deicides or any of the Tampa or the Florida bands really?
No, I never was. I've never really listened much to it still. It's to me, it's always been in every genre that I'm into. It's always like the thrash metal versions of the bands within the genre that I like, with exceptions, of course. But I don't know. For some reason, I never checked out Cannibal Corpse properly. I never checked out Deicide, Suffocation, any of those. And I remember it being because at the time, for some reason, my impression was that they weren't good, that they weren't old school when I was a kid. That was my thought, because I guess all the nerds that were into metal, they loved Cannibal Corpse. So I just thought, well, that's not for me. Which is the case with a lot of classic bands that I had, for some reason, this impression that it wasn't true, if you could say that. Which of course that's not the case, but that's what I thought, so I never checked it out. And it's a bit late to check out Cannibal Corpse at the age of 30.
You got into Bolt Thrower late also.
Yeah, I got into Bolt Thrower. I remember I bought I've had the In Battle There Is No Law for years, and I've known it. But since that record, it's a good record, but it's not memorable in my opinion. And with so many bands, if the first record isn't memorable, the second one won't be either. So it never even crossed my mind to check out anything more. And I can't remember why I did, but it would have been maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, where I checked out Realm of Chaos, and then I got into War Master. But that's also the limit for me. I think those two records are absolute perfection. But after that, they become too much Bolt Thrower for me.
And you had I know you're like Sarcophago is a big thing for you, which we'll talk about when we get to Hecatomb and stuff like that. But you had a buddy who used to play the INRI album around you a lot as a kid.
Yeah. Well, this was, I think, Vin, the drummer in Abhorration. We met when I was 16, I think. We played a concert with his other band. And that's kind of how I got in contact with him, and we started hanging out a bit more when I was 18. The singer in his band, he used to play live in Condor as well. He's from Hamar, where Daniel is from, and up there's this admiration for all things South American. Like with my friends growing up, we knew the bands, we listened to Sepultura, but we didn't know much about anything else from Brazil. And when we hung out at their share house, and when it was late and you'd had a lot to drink, that's when Sarcophago came on. So I think, yeah, probably around the age of 18, then I got suddenly very into Brazilian, South American death metal, particularly Sarcophago. And Inri has stood at the top of my list ever since.
Your first underground concert, I think it's October 3rd, 2010, at the Elm Street with, you saw Sadistic Intent, Evil Dead, and Necromanathon?
Yeah, that's right. This was the first show where we, because for what felt like, at least for a long time then, it was probably 3 years or so, but at the time it felt like it was a long time, and it was just me, Herman, and Kristoffer. We were the only ones that was into metal still. And since we were from Kolbotn, we had met some of the older guys, and when the lady who organized it, Proxy, when she organized that show, I think she made it like age limit 16 so that we could get in. We went to Oslo, went there, bought the tickets, and I remember still sitting on the bus going to the concert, and I'd heard Sadistic Intent, but my big problem at the time was when I just gotten it, like understood that triggered kick drums doesn't sound good. So I remember I had a big problem with the drum sound on Ancient Black Earth, and at the same time the vocals on Resurrection, they were a bit too like obscure sounding for me. So I was like kind of like trying to figure out which one do I prefer, sort of on the bus, because I was just listening to it going there. But that was a major deal for us going to that concert.
And you're a fan of that compilation, The Resurrection of the Ancient Black Earth.
Yeah, I think we've already mentioned, or maybe we haven't mentioned Ultimate Madness yet, but that's a given, because I think Resurrection, Ancient Black Earth, and Resurrection and Inri and Ultimate Madness are probably my 3 favorite releases of all time.
Now, were you a fan of like what Blessed was 91, Blessed Are the Sick, and Abominations?
The thing is with Blessed Are the Sick, it's a good record, but I've never gotten into it as much as with the Covenant and Ultra Madness and Abominations and even Formulas. And I think it's just because the difference between going straight from Altars of Madness to Blessed Are the Sick, like the tempo and the production and everything is just night and day, sort of. So I think I've probably always been a bit like been influenced by the fact that I heard Altars of Madness, and when I then went on to listen, when I was a teenager, went on to listen to Blessed Are the Sick, it just didn't hit as well. So it's a good album, but I think it can't compare to the one after and the one before and Abominations as well.
Now, with Sadistic Intent being your first actual underground show, was that actually the first concert you ever went to? So I'm figuring you're seeing shows at the youth center, right?
Yeah, I'd gone to a few concerts by that time, but yeah, mostly in Kolbotn youth centers. And thing is, since the owners, or probably not the owners, but the guys who ran the youth centers who were into music, there was always loads of local bands that would play, like kids though. And there was like a music festival every year in Kolbotn for kids with bands that all the kids played in. And I'd been to Oslo a few times when I was like 12 to see some shitty bands that I was into at the time and that sort of stuff. But this was the first, like, and I'd seen Metallica, of course, and Slayer. This was the first proper show that I went to by myself that wasn't for kids.
So we mentioned Elm Street. What are some of the other venues you guys are visiting in your teens in the area?
There was one called Nordbikers, which was an old biker club in Oslo. That's where we played our first proper show. So we went to a couple of concerts there because they didn't really care about IDs. But other than that, we couldn't go to anything other than that show. And in Norway, you can't serve hard liquor if the age limit isn't 20. So up until the age of 20, we couldn't really go to many shows unless it was like the big shows. That's like not organized at the bar or pub, but it was organized by like a proper like concert promoter. So in my youth, I can't really remember many shows at all. We went to Elm Street one more time. I went to Blitz, which is punk squat. I saw a couple of bands there. But that's it, I think.
So you're what, 14, 15, right? So that's your first. So Condor's your first band, right? So because you start jamming what Herman in 2009, and then Chris joins what 2010.
Yeah, something like that. Well, the thing is, it was my first proper band, but I guess it was my fourth band at the time because we started playing in bands as soon as we got the instruments. So we had some. I had the band before that I played drums in. That was this kind of punky, kind of black metal, kind of thrashy, you know, the sort of stuff you play when you're a teenager. And I had another one that was like sort of like a thrash metal band. And then me and Herman, we actually played in a band when we were 10 and 11 as well. That sounded awful, of course, but that's where we got to know each other. So then we started up again together when we were 15.
When did you actually first start fucking with the drums?
I would say I was probably 12 or something. It's with drums for me, it's always just been the solution when there's no one else that could do it. And we had all these, like, guess maybe you could call it like workshops at the youth center if you wanted to, where Christian Valbo, for example, he came once. He does remember it himself apparently, but he came once and like showed us some drum techniques when I was a kid. And since you had that rehearsal space and you could just use it kind of whenever, so you didn't necessarily go to rehearse, you just went there to fuck around and try out stuff. So I probably tried the drums for the first time and like learned a beat when I was 11 maybe or something like that.
You can form Condor, which again is taken from the Oro Noir's 2004 record, right? The Merciless. We'll talk about through the interview because I think he's done a lot of artwork for you guys up to the current day. Christian Valbo. Who did the original logo for you guys for Condor?
I think the first logo, I think I drew it, and then I don't know if you've seen the cover for the first demo. It's like a rat and a severed hand. I think it was just some dude that Christopher had been in contact with about this other band called Repellent. And we sent him that sketch, and then he just sent us back the like the kind of like Finnish logo with the rat cover thing. I have no idea who it is.
Would you say some of like the early influences for Condors? What, like, I know you're a huge destruction guy, Infernal Overkill and stuff, like so with Sodom, Razor, Sarcophago. Is that, would you say that's the biggest early influences you guys had? Because I think at first, right, Oro Noir is the band changes, right, from the first demo as it goes on. So Oro Noir would be your first influence, but it develops more.
Yeah, I think it to start with, I think it was mainly Oro Noir, and then just other bands that we heard over those couple of years, like probably Necromantion, probably Antichrist. I remember we were really into this band Blizzard from Germany, and Inferno was one of them, Dark Throne. Archangel was in there, I think. That was an early one. Sadus, that was an early one. But I think it was mostly like all like the black thrash sort of thing. Probably definitely Creator, Sodom, and like the sort of blackened versions of thrash.
Where are you guys rehearsing at early on? Because I don't know, how does it work at those youth centers? Is there a certain age where you guys kind of have to get out? Like once you start turning into like, you know, old adults, kind of make you move out?
Yeah, probably we didn't get to that point. We rehearsed at youth centers for. It's hard to tell now. It felt like a long time, but it could have been a year or two maybe. But then Christopher, he had a small, like, I guess it was just like a storage room where you would keep your like freezer and tools and stuff in the basement of his mom's house. So we just started rehearsing there after I moved to Oslo with my family when I was 16. So I think it was probably then that we changed and started rehearsing at his house instead.
What's the first Condor song you guys wrote?
Ready for Winter was the first one. The last one on the first demo.
I think I had heard you guys, your first goal of the band was to, first of all, which every kid who's in a band is to have vinyl, right, with your band on it.
Yeah,
and then to see someone wearing your guys' t-shirt.
Yeah, that took a while though. I don't think we made any t-shirts until we released the record, which, thinking about it now, it's not that long, but it felt like a long time at least.
What was the first official Condor show?
I think the first official Condor show was before Christopher joined, with just me and Herman at I guess we played at a few just like of the local youth center shows. I can't remember which one was first, but I remember we played at something called Ungdommens Kulturmønstring, which is like I think it's probably like a countrywide battle of the bands sort of thing, and then like you play in a local town. If you go to the next step, then you play we played in Asker the second time. I think that was first one that I can remember at least.
Who were like, how were you guys accepted into the local scene when you guys first started? Who are some of the bands you guys are jamming with when you guys the first year or two?
Oh, the thing is then, I guess at the time we were at the point where we didn't really understand how anything works with it. So the first couple of years, it was all just playing with whatever bands were also playing at all the local youth centers sort of things. I can't remember the names of any of the bands. Well, there was one, Repellent, which was Christopher's band. That was really good. That's crazy. They were like 13, 14 when they recorded the demo there. I don't think probably anyone has heard it, but that was like some proper black thrashing stuff. I think they were the only good band around our age at the time.
2010, you guys do the first demo, right? Facing the First Winter, which has 7 tracks.
Yeah.
Where was it recorded at?
That was recorded at the youth center. No, it was recorded in Christopher's house.
And the drums were done with one mic?
Yeah, both the two. I think both the demos were with one microphone. I think we placed it behind the drummer for some reason.
There was a certain batch of groups there that Fenrez from Darkthrone was like supportive of, Thrashers Union.
Oh yeah. I don't know how you really could describe it. It was just kind of like, I think they just made this sigil, which is just based on that Kolbotn football team's logo, and I think it was just sort of like a stamp that you could put on your record if you were from Kolbotn. it wasn't anything organized, nothing like that. But I guess it was sort of like a bit of a stamp of approval from like a Fenris probably, because he promoted us quite a bit. I think that's what got it all started, because we became that, what's it called? Yeah, when he had the Band of the Week thing on MySpace. And then the second demo was released. There was this like vinyl series it was supposed to be of the Band of the Week, but I think it was only 2. And so they released that on vinyl, which was pretty great for us.
As we were mentioning earlier too, the material on Facing the First Winter demo was different than what basically the band would do eventually. But that was because you guys are kind of trying to figure out what you guys want it to be.
Yeah, and I guess at the time too, it's just when you're a kid, then you just play whatever you think sounds good. Like there's no rules about what sort of style you're gonna play or what sort of riffs you're gonna make. It's just if it sounds good, you use it. Well, if you think it sounds good, you use it. What we were listening to at the time is, I guess that's what we tried to sound like. Except for one song. There was one song on there that I never liked, that I remember being very skeptical of, which was called Cowboys from Hell. And that unfortunately made it to the demo.
That's how it works. And when you're doing that, are you doing the lyrics at that time? Or is Christopher doing the lyrics?
I think Herman and Christopher, they did all the lyrics on that demo. On both demos, I think.
And that was an independent release, right? But there was a tape version of it put out in 2013.
Of the first demo?
Yeah, the first demo.
Yeah, maybe. I can't. I think there was a tape version made in Indonesia or something, but I can't. I guess it was 2013. Sounds late though.
You guys, the second thing you guys did in 2011 was the Speedwagon EP, and that's that was kind of like what you guys were transforming into, right? Because there was a lot of punk influence on that one.
Yeah, it was. I think we were listening to. Remember, we were listening to Puke and Adrenaline OD quite a bit at the time, and that band Blizzard, which was kind of like this punk and roll, or like black and roll sort of thing. Yeah, so we listened to. I've never been too much into punk, but I guess that's the period where I listened to the most punk, I guess.
We were talking about vinyl earlier also. So it comes out on CD, the Speedwagon, comes out on tape, and it also comes out on Cargo Records out of Germany on vinyl. Do you remember the first time you see yourself, like you pick up a vinyl, is it like kind of like an achievement for you guys?
Yeah, it was a huge achievement. That was like the actual record was, that was the whole like Band of the Week series sort of thing. So there was no pictures or anything. It was just like a blank sleeve with the Condor sticker on it. Which was probably a good thing because the cover on that demo was pretty shit anyways. But yeah, I remember going to Nesblo and seeing it in the record shop, and that was a very big deal.
Well, in 2012, you also formed a band called Mayans Hill with Christopher and Jonas Bai. You actually played drums in this band.
Yeah, well, it was the same thing with this band. It was I just met Jonas because he had just moved to Oslo. And he skateboarded, I skateboarded, so we started skateboarding together. And we got the thought to play something. And he could play the guitars, and I kind of play drums. So we just had to try and play whatever we were able to do. So then we tried to make a sort of Hellhammer style death metal band. And then Christopher joined very quickly after, but yeah, so I played the drum just because there wasn't anyone else that could do it.
And the name was inspired by the 85 Sabbath from Japan 7-inch?
Yeah, of course. It's, I guess, when you're at the age where you kind of find it embarrassing to make up names, then it's easy to just steal something from another band instead, which is what we did.
It's a killer logo you guys had for that. Who did the logo for you guys?
That was Jonas. He drew I think he drew everything for Mayans Hill.
And you put out the debut demo, Festering Curses, in 2012. Where'd you guys record that at?
The same place in Christopher's basement. Same thing too, with one drum mic behind me.
Mayans Hill, you guys do the 8-song full length called Black Death. Now, is that influenced by the 85 Destruction record? The song Black Death?
No, it's not actually. I can't. I think it's really just inspired by what I think I saw one. You know those old wood carvings of the skeletons dragging the peasants away, sort of thing. I think it was just I saw one of those wood carvings, and that's where the title came from. And I remember I wasn't, but they were very skeptical, Kristoffer and Jonas, because Obliteration, I think they hadn't released it yet, but we knew that their record was going to be called Black Death Horizon. So they were very skeptical of releasing an album at the same year called Black Death. But yeah, that's what it ended up as.
And they had, what, 2 songs that were on the 2012 demo and then 6 other tracks.
Yeah. It was a bit of a strange record, because I don't think any of us had gotten to the point where we understood that as a musician, as a hobby musician, when you make music or try to make a new release, you should make whatever sounds good. We got it was the same thing with Condor and with Mionsil, that we released something that people liked, and then we got very stuck in the idea of having to make something similar. And I think that's what both the first Condor record and the first Mionsil record, that's what it suffers from, that it's not made out of inspiration, it's just made out of trying to please whoever liked the previous thing. But then you've kind of already used up all the riffs within that style. So the Mionsil record was, unfortunately, to me, and I think everyone involved and probably everyone else, a bit of a disappointment.
How did you guys get hooked up with Apocalyptic Empire Records?
Can't really remember, but Kenneth, who ran it, I don't think it exists anymore. I think Jonas knew him from Trondheim, because Jonas studied in Trondheim and Kenneth was living there, and I think he had a record store as well. So I think he kind of knew him a bit. So I would assume he probably just sent him an email.
You guys also, I think that the Black Death also came out on Dying Victims Productions also, didn't it, in 2014?
Yeah, the tape version.
And are you guys doing shows, or how active are you guys back then?
At the time, I guess it's a pretty short time span that band exists. But we were pretty active at the time. I guess we did the demo, the record, and the following EP in like 3 years or something. So we were quite active. We played quite a few shows, but of course, mostly just around the Oslo area, and a couple of festivals, I think, as well outside of Oslo, but never end. We played once in Germany, actually, at this punk festival, not like a metal festival, at this punk place in Munich, I think.
When was your personally for you, when was your first show outside of Norway?
I think the first show outside of Norway would have probably been Live Evil in 2013, I think it is, with Condor. Yeah, that's probably the first one.
Play a track from Mionsil. I'm going to play Witch's Vomit from the Black Death release. What can you tell us about that? Anything?
Well, it's the first lyrics I wrote, I think.
So they came out also on 12-inch. You guys are starting to put out vinyl releases, which we see through the rest of up to now to your career, which we'll talk about too. But I'm going to play Mionsil, Witch's Vomit. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue after this track. That was Mayans Hill with Witch's Vomit. So 2013, Condor puts out the band's debut full length, the self-titled, has 9 tracks. How were you guys? How excited were you to get that out?
That was pretty awesome. But I do remember it being a bit of like it's sort of a bit of a disappointment as well. Like it was really cool to get it out. I remember being at the party with some people, and one of them being pretty vocal about things, telling me that he had heard it and that it was pretty good, but it wasn't as good as the previous EP. And I think I kind of knew at the time as well, but it was kind of harsh hearing it. But I think that there was a few things that went wrong on that one. Like it's not an awful album, but it's the same thing as I talked about earlier. It was uninspired. For some reason, we also felt like we needed to get it done quickly, which is, of course, you're 17. There's no need to get anything done quickly. Yeah, so we rushed it quite a bit, and when we recorded it ourselves, and Christopher mixed it. But of course, like he could mix volumes and try out a few things. He's not a producer, so he did a good job for not really knowing what he was doing, but the overall sound of it, it's all right. No, actually, that's wrong. It wasn't him that mixed it. It was Arild who mixed it. But I think what kind of went wrong with it was that since he was like an older dude that we looked up to, once he sent us the first mix of it, we just assumed that was it. We never gave any pointers or anything. So it wouldn't surprise me if he kind of just tidied it up and did like a quick example thing, and we just said, all right, that's good. And then, so the production is a bit off. It's not bad, it's just a bit boring, and the songwriting is a bit uninspired. So it's a very average record, I think.
Are you more critical of it because it's your material? Like, is it hard for you sometimes to go back and listen where other people may be like, hey, this is killer, and you're like, do you kind of see the flaws in all of it because it's something you created?
Potentially, but I definitely have releases I really like. But I think I think when it comes to the stuff that I don't, it's just that I don't like the material that well. Like I think the second Condor record I think is good. I think the Hecatomb demo is good, and I think the Aberration stuff is good. But it's I feel like you can hear that it's not properly inspired by anything. And I think that's there's probably some people that like it, but I do not think that there's anyone who really digs that record.
That came out on what, Demon Hood Productions, which also had like Slaughter Messiah was on there. I remember like Death Hammer, Toxic Death.
Yeah, I think it was like a sub label of Duplicate to some extent. I think it was run by Einar from Duplicate Records and Kenneth from Neseblod, if I'm not mistaken.
At that time, 2013, you guys did, for that record, I think you guys did a release show with Infant Death and Insane out of Sweden. You guys are also playing with Satan, Midnight, obviously Death Hammer, Negative Plane and stuff. What were some of your shows that you remember back in 2013 that were some of your favorites with Condor?
I think probably Live Evil being the best one, I'd say. The release show was good. That was at the old biker place that I told you about. And there was this festival in Oslo, I think it was called or something, which is where Negative Plane played as well. That was a pretty good show. Inferno played there as well. And the best one was probably Til Dovre Faller. That was a festival in Dovre in Norway, a very small festival. I wouldn't be able to tell you how many tickets, but probably somewhere between 100 and 200. It's way up in the mountains, and it was just held in this old gym of some sort. That was one of the best festivals I've ever been to. It unfortunately shut down because the organizer got fucked over a few times by the local hotel. But I think that was probably the coolest.
And that's 2013, you're also doing live work with Mabuse?
Yeah, Mabuse, that was Jonas's band. That's actually how we got in touch the first time, because he had a band called Mabuse with Andreas, the bass player in Abhorration. And And when he moved here, he wanted to get it to become like an actual band that played live. So then me and Christopher joined. I think we were probably some of the first people he met here. So we joined pretty quickly as live members.
And you're on the 2013 live album with them.
Yeah. I don't know what concert that's from, though. I didn't even know it was going to be released. I think it's just a digital thing. I don't think they ever made any physical copies.
You're also doing you're doing work with, at that time, live shows also with Crossburst out of Italy.
Yeah. Mike, the singer in Crossburst, he moved to Oslo, and he was good friends with Daniel. And I think I got in touch with him when I got my first tattoo when I was 18. It was at his house. It was an Italian dude that was kind of traveling around doing tattoos. So it was in his living room, and I think that's when we started talking about it. I remember him saying that he had seen me in the city, and I had the leather jacket with pentagram on the back, and he was very skeptical because it was a Doom band, and he doesn't like that shit. So he was happy to find out that I wasn't actually a Doom guy, and I think that's when he asked me if I wanted to play live with him.
And when you guys put out that self-titled record, you guys had knew Herman was going to leave, right? But he was just finished. Didn't he tell you guys before he was going to leave, and started doing, like, wanted to finish out the shows with you guys?
Yeah, it was a really big surprise because I don't know if it's like that in the States, but there was a period here where, in my opinion, it became kind of trendy to some extent in the metal scene to prove that you were into other sort of music than metal. He was the first guy to do that, not in the trend way, but he was one of the first guys that actually got a bit done with metal for a while, because he had always been, he had grown up with Grateful Dead, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and all that stuff that he had heard from his dad, which is what I think he was always properly into, 70s and 60s stuff. And then metal, at the time, at least for him, was something he was really into for a few years, and then it kind of fell back on all the hard rock and hippie music and that sort of stuff. And then he's still into it, more into it now again, but I think at the time he was just kind of done with playing thrash metal drums, and probably realized that what he was properly into wasn't extreme metal, it was 70s hard rock.
You guys should still keep in touch with him, right? Because not to jump ahead, but I know he did the band photo for Demonolatry, didn't he? The back photo?
Yeah, Herman has been, since we started playing together, and to this day, one of my absolute best friends. So I see him every 2 weeks or so.
And then he's replaced by Oyvind, who plays obviously with Purple Hill Witch and stuff. How did that relationship start? Obviously, was it from Abuse when you were jamming with them?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. He played. Yeah, I forgot to mention him. He played with Abuse as well, drums. But no, this was the first proper show that Condor played when I was 16. Was at the Nordbikers, the biker club, and that was with Purple Hill Witch. So we met them then. Didn't talk much because at the time, of course, when I'm 16 and they're 20, that's a pretty big age difference. But maybe a year later, I contacted the singer in Purple Hill Witch to play live guitars in Condors. And he lived with Øyvind, and of course played in a band with him. So then we got to know each other, and I guess that's 15 years ago or so now. So he was the only other drummer we knew, which is why we asked to play in Condor.
Was it like, so I know you play drums too, but is it like in Tampa, so to say? I mean, I've been playing in bands like 20 years in Tampa, and there's like 3 drummers or 2 drummers that play with like 20 bands. Like, it's pretty much how it works. And everybody I talk to on this show that we've been doing, it's pretty much the same deal, right? You got like, you have like maybe 10 drummers in the town, but there's 2 that can actually really play. You guys have that situation too?
Yeah, for sure. Like, of course, then it was only other drum we knew at all. But it's the same here. There are a few drummers, but for certain styles of music, there's not many ones that I know that would be able to replace. Honestly, I can think of one person that could replace Øyvind if he decided to quit Abhorration. Because like, one thing is to know the technical parts, but you need to have the right attitude, and you need to, of course, have the right taste in music. Because if we were to get in some technical drummer, that wouldn't work at all. That would ruin the whole thing. So we're at his mercy.
And you also find out, which I'm sure you know, you've been doing this long enough now, where you also find out who you can hang out with for say you go out for even, what, 9 dates, but you can find out in those 9 dates who your bandmates are because you see, you kinda
Yeah.
find out the personalities, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I've never been on like a tour at all until May this year. But we played quite a few shows before, but not really many where we've had to like stay over for the weekend or anything. Uh, but of course, we know each other well, and at least in the beginning of the band, we did a lot of like weekend rehearsals where we would go to Idle's house, play, and stay over the night. So we had a lot of those like short time span things. But the dynamic when we go out on tour or like on weekend trips now, it's pretty good. And I don't think I would be able to do it if I had anyone in the band that I found really annoying or I couldn't deal with over a long period of time.
I had heard, so, there was a story I heard about you guys where you guys were doing a show, and I think, what you guys overslept in the hotel. You guys have to go to the venue to play the show. You guys have to cut songs out of the set?
Oh, yeah. There hasn't been a time where we've overslept at the hotel, but we've had to cut songs a few times, but mostly just because of that we can't do it anymore. Because like on the previous tour, it was extremely hot in a lot of venues, so Øyvind just couldn't breathe anymore. But I think the one you're talking about might be Malmö in
The
May.
red markers?
Yeah, we had to do that in Malmö. We had to cut a song or two because we arrived a bit late. But then we were driving. I think we came from Oslo to Gothenburg and then drove from there. So we arrived when the second band was playing or something like that. So we had to cut the song then.
And what you guys, forgot to tell each other what songs you were gonna cut or something like that? I think it was, like, something about the lighting in the place blocked out the markers you guys couldn't.
Okay, yeah. This was a different show. This was in Gothenburg. It was probably the most Final Tap situation I've been in. At least it was. Oh yeah. We did oversleep, but we didn't have to cut. We didn't have to cut any songs. Maybe we did, but it was the day after the release show. We had the release show in Oslo. Then we went to Gothenburg, and then we all went to have a nap in the hotel room when we arrived. And then we woke up around 9 or something like that to go to the venue. I had to write the set list because we hadn't written it, and we hadn't decided what to play either. And we wrote with a blue marker, but then as it turned out, it was a set list that we hadn't rehearsed in or anything. And the lights on stage were blue as well. So none of us knew the order, and we couldn't see the order either. So that was a bit fucked.
Yeah, it's fucked up. And we mentioned the band Toxic Death earlier. You guys did a split with them on Germany's Dying Victim Productions in 2014 titled Victims of Burning Death. And that's the first actual recording with Øyvind.
Yeah, that was... we kind of knew those guys. I'd met them at Keep It True, probably the same year, and at the concert in Oslo. That was the first one with Øyvind, and you probably wouldn't believe it, but there's a riff in that song that sounds a lot like a Destruction song from Eternal Devastation. But at the time when we wrote it, none of us, maybe Øyvind, I'm not sure, but he didn't write the riff anyways. None of us had actually listened to the second Destruction album. We just wrote the same riff because we were listening to the first Destruction album.
You guys, you did that, and then 2015, Mayans Hill puts out the Torture album on Dying Victim Productions, which is like, 4 unreleased tracks at that time, and then tracks from the Festering Curses demo. And why does the band, is that the end after that? Like, when do you guys decide to call it quits, or did you ever officially call it quits? And what year did you actually call it quits, if you did?
Well, the way I remember it, I think we hadn't officially quit before that, but we weren't playing, so the band was kind of dead. Because I remember when we started writing it, it was just me and Jonas in our minds at the time starting the band up again. It'd probably just been a year, 6 months, I don't know. But in our mind, we were starting the band up again and wanted to kind of like take it back to, if you could call it, the roots, and stop trying to make black metal riffs, and stop trying to mix it up with the other sorts of tempos than the Hellhammer tempo. so we did that. We did it very quickly. I would assume we wrote it probably in a couple of months. We recorded it in one night, and it wasn't like an official goodbye, but I think we all kind of knew that we wouldn't really do anything after that. And then I moved to Australia, so then we obviously didn't, and we never talked about starting back up again.
You spent what, 4 years in Australia?
Yeah, just over 4 years.
Which actually leads to the next thing, because 2017, the final Condor record comes out, Unstoppable Power, on High Roller Records, which has 8 tracks on there. And that is what you guys hook up with High Roller, but you guys had already signed with High Roller before the record actually came out?
Yeah, I think, well, probably just before we recorded it. I think we just sent some. We had contacted them for the first record. They weren't interested, and then we sent them some rehearsal tapes, I think, for the second record, and they got to deal with them then.
It took, what, 2 years to write that record?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess we started 2014 probably with that record, because the song on that split with Toxic Death, that's the first song we wrote for it. And then we recorded it in January, I think, 2016.
Did you guys record that at Berserker Ninja Studios?
Yeah, that's the studio of a friend of ours, the guy who, Salvador, the singer in Black Viper. He used to have a studio out in Eidsvoll, where he's from, with a friend. I don't think they recorded that much. I don't think it was around for that long, but we went out there for 1 week, and I think this was just a week before I moved to Australia. We stayed at his house for a week and went every day to the studio, which was just in this old abandoned office building. So it was a bit weird and eerie. And we stayed there for probably 12 hours every day recording, and then went back to his house and got up the next day and did the same thing.
You guys also worked with Patrick Engel on there.
Yeah, I think he does most, at least he used to do most of the mastering for High Roller. So we never talked to him, we just sent them the mix, and then we got the master back.
And you guys also on that, you have worked with Rock from, obviously Sadistic, and then he did the logo for Slayer magazine even, man. How did you guys get a hold of him, and how did that whole process happen?
Well, the thing with him, to my knowledge, I don't think he was doing too many covers or anything. Back at the time, there was no contact details. He didn't have a Facebook page or anything like that. But it was just, I was talking to Mike, the Italian guy from Crossburst. We lived together at the time, about how great the covers for, especially with the We Are Death record. Then he was saying that you should try and get a hold of him and see if you can get the cover made. And 2 years before, I had been to Australia just with my family, and I had met this guy, James Grant, from Sydney. And I think I remember him telling me that he had been in contact with Rock at some point. So I contacted James, and I got Rock's email and sent him an email and he was happy to do it straight away. It was very easy to deal with and very cheap at the time too. I think we paid 300 Australian dollars, which will probably be 200 American or something like that, for the cover and the title. So it went pretty quickly. Super nice guy. And I think I would say that the cover on that record, in my mind, is one of the best ones that he's done in recent years. Like, he does a lot of great shit, of course, but I think that one looks very good.
Now, were you a fan of Sadistic Execution at all?
Yeah, that's why the whole topic came up, because we were probably listening to the Magus, but I think the cover art on We Are Death is absolutely amazing. So yeah, I was definitely into Sadistic Execution at the time, and still am.
On that record, you wrote, what, 6 songs lyric-wise, and then Chris wrote 2? And musically, it was like a group effort?
Yeah, I think, I wrote most of the lyrics. I would say Christopher wrote probably somewhere between 60 and 70% of the riffs. He's a very creative guy. He can make music in every genre, and he's a very good guitarist as well. And he has obviously very good taste in music, so he can make what he imagines in his head, sort of. So he would he would show up with a bunch of different riffs, and then I would add mine here and there.
What was the band's last show in November 2017?
Yeah, I think so. That was in Oslo at Blå with Rust from Sweden, very underrated band, by the way, and Rapid from Finland. When I think they had just released a demo at the time, and Evoke, which was the thrash metal band from Oslo. That was a good night.
Like I said, you could always answer what you want to. What made you move to Australia?
Well, at the time, like officially to study, but at the time also I'd finished high school. I was working part-time in a pet store, was living in a share house, and I think I earned probably 10 to 12,000 kroner a month, which would cover rent and a little bit extra. So it was pretty miserable at the time. So I kind of just thought, well, what can I do to actually get to just do something else and get somewhere? And then my brother was studying in Australia at the time, so then I thought, well, why not give it a go? And I also thought I need to go somewhere where they speak English, and I need to go somewhere where it's far enough away, so I just can't decide to quit and go home. Because I'd already done that for studies twice before. So I thought, in the States, you couldn't work while studying. So I knew that it was really expensive. So then I just ended up going to Australia instead.
I'm going to play, actually, from Condor, I'm going to play Riders of Violence from Unstoppable Power here in a second. And when you guys were finishing the mix on that record, it was a little bit delayed because of your move?
Yeah, I think the mix took quite a while. And that was because we did a rough mix when we were there. But since I had more opinions on the mix than the other guys, so then every time he did another one, he would just send it on email. I would make all my notes, send it back, and they would put in some notes, send it back, and then we'd get the mix back again. And there was always something that we hadn't mentioned that had changed due to the new mix. And it's probably our fault. It's probably something that everyone who knows how stuff works with mixing, they probably know that's just the way it is. But in our minds, it was always every time we asked him to put up, for example, the bass, then there would suddenly be a section that sounded weird again. So it was a lot of back and forth like that. I think we probably had 10 different mixes, but since everything happened through email, it would be like a few weeks, or probably, I can't really remember, a week, month maybe, before the next mix would arrive. But I think the mix turned out to be really good, and the guy who mixed it, he wasn't even into that sort of metal, so I'm impressed that he was able to make it sound that good.
Is that your favorite Condor release?
Yeah, for sure.
When you went to Australia, did you pretty much know it was done?
Yeah, and the thing is, I had decided when we were recording the album that was it for me. So it never really crossed my mind to get it back together. I was happy the record did well, and we've got a few questions about that in the last couple of years. But to me, there's no point and no need to start that band again.
We're going to play Condor, Riders of Violence from the Unstoppable Power record. Anything you could tell us about this track?
Well, it's the fastest track on the record. I think it's the most hard-hitting track on the record. But I can't think of any fun facts now.
We'll be back with Magnus after this track from Condor.
Coming, rise of doom. Restless eternity, the truth. Bring the know your fault. All you can see is medicine cake. The little things in the brain. Kill. Control of the ball, very death. Most of the stage and the labels for the back. Most of the warriors kill to the eye. To the torture killed by the warriors.
And that was Condor with Riders of Violence. And, you know, everything comes full circle. We were talking about Sarcophago earlier. So you move and you put together a band with Rick Warkill, Hecatomb, which is, for you, is kind of like a tribute to Sarcophago.
Yeah, 100%. The thing is, I had, like, as with a lot of, which I mentioned many times, but all this happened like in my youth and in my early 20s, and at the time it felt at least like a very long time that I'd been planning to make a one-man like South American death metal sort of band, but it's kind of hard to get going with a one-man band because you have to record everything to actually hear what it sounds like. So I remember I tried it with Lewis from Evoke, and he also played live guitars in Deathhammer for a few years. We tried it out once when I was back here visiting. But it, of course, I was living in Australia, so it wasn't really going to get anywhere. So then I got the idea to ask Rick when I moved to Melbourne. And like, he has the same taste in music as I do. He's into the same bands. We would spend most of our time just sitting in his shed listening to R&R when I lived there. So it was definitely like a hobby project because I'm not a good drummer, he's not a good guitarist. Neither of us knew how to do any vocals. So it's kind of just trying to fill the void of not playing in the band when you have played in the band since you were 10, sort of. Because I had a couple of years when I didn't play anything when I was there, and it just didn't feel right. So we started it up as a hobby thing, and it turned out pretty all right.
Where did you guys record? You guys did the 4-song double-sided cassette titled Horrid Invocations. Where did you guys record that at?
I can't remember what it was called. I think it was in Footscray. There was a guy named Adam who I think he just rented this sort of rehearsal space / studio thing where they had this shitty drum kit and some shitty amps, and then we recorded that demo. We did the drums and the guitars live, and then obviously we were only 2 people, so then we added the bass and the second guitar, and then I went home for Christmas holiday in Norway, and the bass sound was kind of off, and there was a few like guitar things where, since we did it live, we didn't really notice, so we fucked it up. So then I did the bass over again in Norway, and added, I think I added some more guitar stuff, and did the vocals as well with Andreas. That was the first time that we like hung out, when he helped me do the recordings for that. And then I think we finished it off when I was back in Australia. Did the couple of, if you could call it, leads in Rick's living room. I think we recorded it. I wonder if he even maybe recorded it onto his phone and sent it to Andreas to get it in the mix. Yes, it was quite a few sessions, and actually there was way more sessions now that I think of it. I think we recorded the bass 4 times because we did the first one, didn't work out, then we did it at a friend's house, and his computer stopped working, so everything was deleted, and then we did it at a third guy's house, and he just never sent it to us. Like, we spent like 6 months trying to get the recordings from him, and he just refused to send it. He said he would do it. I even said I could come there with like a hard drive and get the files, but he just he refused to send it for some reason. So then we had to scrap the third version of the bass. And that's when I did it in Norway, actually. So it was, I think we spent like a year recording it.
Well, we actually played Black Winged Pestilence at the beginning of the show. And Invictus actually also did a release of the vinyl version of that in a CD in 2021.
Yep. So we released the demo ourselves, got it printed in Melbourne, which is, I don't think there's too many places around Europe where you can actually print like professional tapes, but there was one place in Melbourne, and they were super nice about it because I contacted them maybe a month before I was moving back to Norway, and in my mind I wanted it to be released physically before I moved, so that it was still an Australian band, that it didn't say international or Metal Archives. So we released it ourselves, 100 copies, and I think it was actually at the airport on my way home that I sent an email to Nuclear War Now and Invictus, because those were the only two labels that I in my mind that would fit the band. Didn't hear anything back from Nuclear War Now, but then Dara actually said yes, which says a lot about him, that he's actually willing to release a very rotten demo by a band no one has ever heard of, because I think he agreed to it before the demo was even out. So he did the vinyl release, which really surprised me and gave me a lot of respect for him and the label.
Big fan of Invictus, man. I think they have some killer stuff. Were you disappointed when you left Australia when the demo came out and you went back to Norway?
No, the thing is, I was always set on moving back to Norway. I really liked it in Australia, but the whole, especially when you're in your 20s, and the whole thing, at least in Europe, where you can travel around to festivals, like you can go to a different country just to see a concert if you want to. And it's not like I did it all the time because I didn't have any money to do it, but you could. And I think that was what I struggled with a bit in Australia, that you were very limited to seeing either local bands or big bands, because small bands, they can't afford to go there. So yeah, I think it's it's actually because of metal that I always decided to move back. Band-wise, it was a bit of a disappointment, because I remember when I moved, there was no doubt that the band was over. But when the demo was actually released, I remember we were talking about it. Maybe we could try and continue it somehow and just record when we visit and stuff. But since I'm a shitty drummer and sorry Rick, he's a shitty guitarist, I don't think we'll be able to record anything unless we practice for a few months before, so it probably won't happen.
Back to Norway in 2020, then you guys decided to put together Abhorration. Now, at that time period is when you're really into Morbid Angel at that period?
Yeah, I think for the previous, well, it was in Australia that I'd heard Ultra Madness. I had Ultra Madness. I liked Ultra Madness from the age of 15, probably. But I remember there was at one point in probably maybe 2016 when I kind of got Morbid Angel, where I understood why it's the best death metal band in the world, and why Ultra Madness is the best death metal record in the world. So I spent all those 4 years obsessively listening to Altars of Madness and Resurrection as well. And moving back, since that's what I was listening to, and I'd kind of gotten it out of my system, the whole South American thing, it was really the only way to go for me with starting a new band.
We had last week we had Flame on. We had Black Venom from the Finnish band Flame, and he was saying something about Morbid Angel that I do agree with, being from Tampa, and we grew up around that band there. They are a universal band, and what I mean by that is, like, whether it's death metal, black metal, whatever it is, everyone kind of can agree on Morbid Angel. I always notice that it's the one band that everyone kind of digs some period of their time.
Yeah, them and Slayer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
yeah,
totally. You're doing this, and you obviously Oyvind gets involved with you and Andreas. But you guys also, at first, you guys have different. So we mentioned, which we'll talk about the new record, well, the 2024 record, Demonolatry. But at first, you guys have different names for the band before you call it Abhorration, right? You guys actually, one of them was Demonolatry, and then Flagellation was another one.
Yeah, that's right. I think. Demonolatry, I'd read about it because at university I did a history subject about about like the witch hunts and the witch trials and all that stuff in Europe back in the day, and I'd read there's a book called Immolatry. I can't
By Nicholas
something
Remy?
yeah, and then it's translated by some guy named something Kramer. And that's where I heard the word. So it came up very early, and we even got a logo, the Immolatry logo, drawn up by Rick. And I'm kind of surprised that we didn't go for that name, because it's a pretty good name, but it's hard to pronounce though. And Flagellation, that I think, I just think the guys didn't really like it. I think it was Rick that said it sounded too much like fellatio.
Does have that ring to it, kind of. And we talked about Christian Valbo earlier. That he actually, who did the Condor logo eventually, he did the Aberration logos too, because there was 2 different ones.
Yeah, now there's 3 actually. He's done a third one, and they're all, I guess they're all the same thing, just different variations of it. And what I really like about that, I've never, well, actually, Hecatomb had a good logo. But I really like that when we wanted the logo made, I think the main ones that I sent a bunch of different logos, but like the main ones that I can remember being the reference was Nocturnus, the first demo one with the demon riding the pitchfork, and the Occult Burial one, the Finnish band. I think those were like the main ones that I sent, and of course like Death, the whole thing, that it has everything. That's the cross, it has the cobweb, no, like spider web, it has the blood, it has the flames, all that sort of stuff. I think maybe I mentioned like to have a sort of logo that stands by itself, that you can have a shirt with just a logo. So he sent that back. He sent both, and the first one he sent is the one that's on the demo, and I think it was called Death Metal 1987, which I think is a pretty fitting title.
Yeah, it's a great logo, man. It's the Aberration logo is killer. I mean, you got the, obviously people, you got the demon in there and stuff. What was the actual first Aberration song written?
The first one was After Winter Comes War. Was the first one. I think that's the one we made when it was just Øyvind and me. And then I think we got started on the last one on the demo and the second one. I think we got started on both of those before Andreas joined the band, and then he like finished them and the last song with us.
And when you first start writing material for that, it's just you and Øyvind?
Yeah, so it was just the 2 of us in the beginning.
And you were not going to do the vocals at first. That wasn't the idea.
Since we were just a duo, that was the only option. And I had done vocals once before on the Hecatomb demo, and of course we could do the same sort of vocals. But I guess I'd gotten past the whole like threshold of whether you can do it at all or not. So the idea was that I would do it, but only if it sounded right. So I was very adamant that if it doesn't sound right, and if I think it's okay, but Øyvind doesn't like it, then we just ask someone else to do it. So yeah, it was a plan, but a very uncertain one.
You guys formed the band, and after that, what you guys do after Winter Comes War in 2001. Now, is that on the Condor 2010 demo, Facing the First Winter? Does that have anything to do with that, After Winter Comes War?
No, it's there's actually 2 winter songs on the first Condor demo. I can't remember exactly, but it was a friend of ours that came up with the title, just sort of as a joke, I think. It was in the winter, and in Norwegian, spring is vår. And I think he made a joke saying after winter comes vår, which is like obvious, after winter comes spring. And I think that somehow that's where the title came from, I think.
And when you guys first do that demo, the lyrics are based on the Divine Comedy, or that was kind of the idea?
Yeah, that was the idea. My idea was because I had just the year before I bought the Divine Comedy and Dante's Inferno, or I can't remember which one the lyrics are from. Actually, it's one of them. And my idea was that I would, because I'm not a great lyricist. But so I need something very specific to be inspired from to write them. So a lot of it is just kind of, I guess a lot of it is like just my take on classic writing. And my idea was that I would write write the lyrics as the first song being at like the bottom circle of hell, and then kind of rise up through it, going the other way. And I think I skipped a couple of them, obviously, since there's only 4 songs. No, actually I didn't. I went through all of them. It starts at the bottom, then it ends up sort of like, I guess, breaking up through the crust of the earth, sort of.
And would you say that's the first time you start really taking lyrics serious?
Yeah, it's I'm sure you could like my lyrics there. I guess you probably couldn't say they're well written, but I have opinions on what lyrics should be and what they shouldn't be, and I think they should be serious. I think they should be about something other than just childish satanic concepts. It needs to have some sort of depth to it, to the extent that anything I can write has depth to it. But yeah, it needs to be something more than just satanic rambling.
You guys record that demo at at Andreas's room, the jam room?
Yeah, he used to have a rehearsal space / studio in this very professional place where a bunch of like Norwegian pop singers and stuff record in Oslo. So we just recorded it there over a weekend or 2 or something like that. Then we mixed it at Arild's house a couple of months after.
It's out November 26th, I believe, 2001, and I'm actually going to play Desecrate, the Exploits of God off of that. Anything you could tell us about that track?
Well, that's the final couple of circles of hell right there.
And this is Aberration with Desecrate, the Exploits of God off After Winter Comes War from 2021. Invictus will be back after this track on the Tampa Morgue. and that was Aberration with Desecrate the Exploits of God. And when the first Aberration show is what, December 10th? With Impunger and Filth Digger?
No, that was the third one, I think. The first one was at this festival that a friend of ours used to organize at his like dad's farm out in the countryside. So he has a farm where he used to have a festival that's for friends and friends of friends. And the bands would typically be bands that he knows or someone he knows them or something like that. And he would play in the old pig pen down in the basement of the barn. And it's over a whole weekend, and it's a mix between it's punk and metal, and like there could be some bluegrass, and then there's usually like some very strange trance party in the nighttime. But that was the first show. That was the only show I think we did as a 3-piece.
Allred, who eventually joins 2021, because he does a lead on that demo track also from he does Desecrate the Exploits of God. He does a solo on that one.
Yeah, so he did the solo, and then because when we did that show, we hadn't mixed it yet, but it was during that show, so it was before we even mixed it, that I remember him mentioning. I was saying that we should get a second guitarist because we need someone to play leads, and then he mentioned that maybe he could do it. So I think once when he mixed it, I think he was actually already a part of the band, but he just hadn't been part of the actual recording process of it.
You guys, 2022, 2023, you guys doing shows with Horrorfire, Ninth. You guys do the Hellbot and Metal Fest in 2023 with Razor and Black Viper. You guys do Killtown Death Fest in 2023 also with Benediction and Bell Witch, Drowned. And you guys at Killtown, that second demo that you guys put out for Aberration was an exclusive cassette from that festival with the 3 tracks on it.
Yeah, so for that festival, we were supposed to get the CD version of After Winter Comes War to sell, but it was late and some stuff like that, so we decided to just make a demo to sell there so that we had something other than shirts. So we this was before I got a kid, obviously, so we had loads of time to rehearse during weekends and do demo recordings. So we did demo recordings of the whole record before we actually recorded it, and that was like when we finished the song, we'd record it with like in the rehearsal space, but with mics for the amps and for the drums, and then we would add vocals and add guitar solos afterwards, and then we saw that we would have an actual demo version. We could listen to it and see what works and what doesn't. So we did that for all the songs, and at that time, I guess we had done 3 of them. We decided to just put them all on the tape. So we ordered, I think I ordered 50 blank tapes from England, and then then I actually dubbed all of them at a friend's house. But then it turned out we had like the master recording volume too low, so they were all very low, so we had to redub all of them. So I think I did 25 of them at home, and then I did the other 25.
You've obviously been playing some fest now. Do you have some favorites that you've been involved with?
Some festivals?
Yeah, so your favorite festival so far?
I guess the thing is, when you play in the death metal band now, you play typically at death metal festivals. So we've only really played at those sort of like indoors, industrial area sort of festivals, with a few exceptions. But I think my favorite one so far is probably Killtown, because that's the one that has the most like festival vibe to it, where it's like a whole big outside area and like there's stuff to do between the bands. Whilst a lot of the ones that we play are smaller ones, where it's mostly you're in the venue, and the venue, that's it, sort of. So Killtown Death Fest is probably my favorite.
In 24, you guys put out the band's debut album, Demonolatry, on Invictus. Obviously, great 6 tracks. I mean, what do you start noticing? Because I told you before you came on tonight that we started getting messages from people asking us about when I started putting up that you were coming on here. People were kind of surprised. They're like, "Oh shit!" When do you start noticing that the band, like Aberration, is starting to really catch attention?
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I'm not quite sure. I guess because we played at the Tones of Decay festival just before. And for that show, I contacted them because Sovereign was playing, and Tommy from Sovereign, he had mentioned to me that they could be interested in having us. So we contacted them, and I think quite a few of the shows before that, I had been the one to take the initiative. But once the record came out, we actually started getting some messages from concert organizers outside of Norway. I think that's when, I guess, I got the impression that people had liked the album.
Yeah, like I said, you could put 6 tracks in there. We actually opened up the show with the title track. First of all, dude, the album cover, one of my favorite album covers in a couple years that I've seen. So what, you sent a bunch of like, you kind of took some album covers that you liked personally and sent them to Christian, because Christian Valbo did the artwork for that album cover also.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think there was a few different opinions about the sort of like, I guess the idea of the cover art, because I really like the sort of cover art that Sabbath has, like the first Battery and Autopsy and stuff, where it's a black background with some object on it. So it's kind of like demo-like, but it's an album. But I know that, for example, Øyvind, he wanted something like something a bit more proper, an actual image, and more like a painting sort of style. So I sent just a combination of what I think is the best like object style covers, which is of course Sabbath, Battery, the Abominations, and a few of those, and then I also included like Dawn of Possessions and a couple of others like proper like painting ones. And like Christian told me, like he can't do those. Well, according to him, I think he can, but he can't do those like proper like painting versions. So I guess it's kind of like a thing in between. But we didn't give any directions on what we wanted it to be. I think I said I sent the lyrics and I sent the demo versions of the songs, and I said no dicks, please.
no flaglations or whatever.
Yeah, like I don't mind an evil dick here and there, but preferably not on my own cover art.
When you got that cover art, were you just like, you had to be, were you pretty ecstatic? Like, oh, this is fucking badass.
Yeah, he had sent us a draft of it before, and it captures the music pretty well. I think it's the dead eyes of Satan there that does it.
I think it's one of those, when I was growing up, and I don't know about you, but there was many albums, especially I'm a little older than you. You saw the cover, you picked it up. Sometimes you got misled. You bought an album, it wasn't that great, but the album cover was killer. And I think the album cover is killer where, with the Aberration release, you'll check it out even if you don't know what it is. So, I mean, it's one of those kind of, I don't know if that makes any sense, but one of those kind of releases visually.
Yeah, I hope so. I did the same thing as well with in the CD shops when I was a kid, before we could download stuff and before YouTube and all of that. I hope that happens. And I remember I've done it with a few later too, not necessarily the cover art, but just that I've seen it and I thought I've heard about it. It's probably good, and I buy it, and then it's such a treat when it actually is good.
We always say on this show that the biggest, I don't know if you ever remember Meatloaf's Bat Outta Hell. That cover is so misleading, man. You get the record, you see the cover, and it's like a killer looking cover, but then you get it and it's totally different. Not that it's all, it's kind of throws you off.
I've had a few of those with like the Frazetta covers, because there's like a few of those 70s bands that have the Frazetta covers and they look fucking awesome, and then it's just this boring as hell dad rock sort of thing. And I guess the most misleading that I can think of is Infernal Majesty, probably. Just the other way around, though.
Definitely. And on a side note, I had heard that you're someone who, like, when you're working on a record, you don't like to work on more than one thing at a time. Like, you need to have your plate cleared when you're working on something.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's with bands in general. I can't really play in more than one band if I'm the one who's making the music for it. And it's the same with records too. We write one song at a time, and then we write enough for an album, and then that's it. And then we rehearse, and then we record it, and then we get started up again after we record it. But you kind of you need the closure to be able to move on, in my opinion.
You guys recorded, mixed that in the winter of 2003, 2004. As we mentioned, it's sometimes, at that time you're having a kid, right? So that actually probably you have to speed shit up a little bit, right? During that time period at the end.
Yeah, that was a very hectic period in my life, because my kid was born in the end of June 2023, and the plan was to try and record before he was born, and that obviously didn't happen. So then, from finishing the album, we finished it probably in, I don't know, April, maybe March, April, or something like that. We rehearse, and then we get a break for a couple of months because I can't really do anything. And then we decided we have to get it done. So we actually did like almost in a way like a test concert the evening before we started recording in Oslo, where we played through the whole record. And then since Arild, he lived at the time, and I guess still, about an hour away from Oslo. So it was, you could do it on a weekend, but you would have to go after work on the Friday. We could set stuff up, record on Saturday, stay at his house until Sunday, and then do as much as we could on the Sunday, and then go home. And then we would have to go back the next weekend or the next weekend after that. So it happened over just weekends for a few months. I think we spent it took maybe 3 months or so over different weekends here and there. And of course, if I'm away for 2 weekends in a row, I can't be away for the third weekend when we have a 4-month-old baby at home. So it was pretty stressful. There was definitely a few vocal parts that I wanted to do again, but we kind of realized like we'll just have to settle for it.
Did you write all the lyrics for that record and most of the music for Demonolatry?
Yeah. So the thing is, for that, for on the demo, then of course most of the riffs and everything was already written before anyone joined. And then a few ones after Andreas joined, but so then it was just my riffs, and then even of course just the drums and the beats and shit. And I wrote the lyrics since I'm the singer, and for the record we kind of just kept going in the same sort of way. I think Andreas had a different band at the time that he was very involved with writing stuff, so I don't think he probably felt the need to write stuff for Abhorration. And Arild, I guess he has like a mountain and obliteration, so he added a few things here and there, but at the time, it would typically be that I would have a riff for a whole part, I would bring it, we would play it, and then we would probably change stuff, like structures stuff afterwards, but mostly my riffs, yeah.
Now, as a singer, doing the vocals and stuff, talk about the lyrics. Do you find it's easier for you to, to phrase the shit if you write it, right? If you're doing the lyrics, it's easier for you to perform it.
Yeah, I've never done it in any other way, but I guess I've been on the other side where I've written lyrics for the Condor record, and then the singer not knowing what I'm thinking when it comes to phrasing and that sort of stuff, and it's very awkward trying to tell a singer what to do. So I kind of just decided that if I wanted to be my way, because I have a very specific idea of how I want the vocals to be, then I just have to write them myself. And I would assume it would probably feel also very strange to ask someone to change the lyrics they've written, because in my mind the phrasing doesn't work. So it just naturally happened that way.
You guys did what, 2 release shows for that album with Mutation from Sweden?
Yeah, one in Oslo and one in Gothenburg.
You guys also played Tones of Decay Festival in Prague in 2024. You guys also put out August 7th, 2025. You guys put out the Abhorrent Entities on Invictus, 7 tracks. Now, for you, I had heard, so you were a believer that demos shouldn't come out on a label, right? You think demos should all be self-released by just like independently, like you said, 50 copies, 100 copies. Now on this, you guys have demos from the winter demo on there and stuff. So you kind of just figured it was which I think it's killer, man. The 12-inch version of it. What made you change your mind about that?
Well, I don't have a problem with the demos being re-released on an album, not on a label, but in my mind, if it's already on a label, it's not a demo, then it's something else. And we always intended After Winter Comes War to be an EP, just for the reason that it was on a label and because of it's not a demo recording quality sort of thing. So we said it was an EP and it was supposed to be an EP, but then it was released only on tape. I think the plan was to do more than just a tape after a little while, but it didn't happen. So I think to everyone else it's a demo, but to us it's an EP. It's a debut EP, I guess.
I have a few new songs written for the next record already.
Yeah, we have one finished with lyrics and everything called The Ritual Divination, Divination, I'm not sure. And we have another one that we finished a couple of weeks ago. No lyrics yet though, but just like the structure of it. And then I guess we have the start, the first 3 riffs or so, 3 to 5 riffs of maybe 3 more. But since everyone is writing now, everything takes a bit longer, because when you're just one person and you have the riffs and you have the idea for the structure, it's very easy that it just ends up being that way with some alterations. But now, since Andreas writes a lot, Ari writes a lot as well, then there's, I guess, more consideration to take, because they have their opinions on the tempo the riff should be. And that makes it much harder to combine it, because then you need other riffs to change tempos to kind of fit into the tempo of that one, or you have to make transitions to make it work, and transitions is the hardest thing I know to make, at least. So we have loads of riffs and a few parts, but we just have to put them together.
The next record will be more of a group effort?
Yeah, for sure. I think the new one we've made now, that's the first one where, like, maybe not duration-wise, but riff-wise, I think it's 2 of mine, 2 of Andreas's, and 2 of Arid's. So it's kind of like it's a like even distribution of stuff, and I think that's probably the way it's going to be.
And now you guys are all a little bit older. You're 31. The other guys are a couple years older. Are you guys rehearsing every week now, or do you guys kind of like get together once a month? And how does that work?
Oh, we do it every week. To me, I need it to be every week, because I need the pressure to have at least when I wrote most of it, it's you need the pressure to that you need to have something ready, and it needs to be structured to me. So once it starts, like, if we don't have a set time that we have every week, it just kind of flows out and it doesn't work. And I feel like that's often how it often ends up with bands, that it just gradually they lose that sort of like structure of when they're supposed to play, when they're supposed to have stuff ready. And then you also say you rehearse once a month, you just have to go over the same stuff every time. You have to spend an hour just remembering the riffs every time. So we share rehearsal space with Impugner and a couple of others. So we have 1 day a week where the room is ours, and then we go there every week, whether we have something new or not.
Plus, I think it's good, I don't know about what you think, but for me, whatever I do, I like to be together with the guys writing the songs, not like, everyone, we're in an era now, or a time period now where everyone's sending each other MP3s or, WAV files and emails. But don't you find it much more of a natural thing when the band's getting together and putting shit together?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done it that way. I guess when I was a drummer, I would send riffs so that he could learn it for the band practice. But with this band, we've never sent files or recordings or anything like that. It's always someone has something, shows it to the other guys in rehearsal, and then you go from there.
November, you guys are doing shows with Nunslaughter. We had Dawn of the Dead on here probably like 2 years ago. In Switzerland and Germany, you guys are doing shows in January with Necromantic, in England and Ireland. And you guys are playing in Mexico in March.
Yeah, that's what's planned for now. And well, there's a couple of more things coming probably in the next month or so. But after March, no, that's not true. There's a few things in the spring as well, but that's what's announced just yet.
What's your gear of choice, man?
Well, thing is, I'm not. I'm a guitarist, but I'm not into guitars. I'm not into any technicalities. I still don't remember the order of the detuning when I tune my guitar, and that's just because, like, my interest in the instrument died when I was 17. Probably, I like making music, but I'm not into any of the like side of things, if that makes sense. So what I go for is I go for the guitar that I think looks the best, and I go for the amp that I know sound good because I've seen other people have it. So I have the guitar that I play is Ibanez Rocket Roll, and that's because I saw it in like a used instrument shop in Wollongong in Australia when I lived there. And I just bought the Destroyer, which I bought because there was a guy selling it used. And I didn't buy the Rocket Roll then because I just bought another guitar, but then I contacted them 5 years later when I lived here, and they sent it to me in Norway. So I got that, and that's because that's the best looking guitar you can find in my eyes. It sounds okay. And I have I have a couple of I have a like Ibanez Tube Screamer pedal in case I get the Marshall amp. I can use that one to get a little bit of extra drive to it. And then my amp, I have the PV6505, which is I guess the standard metal amp. And then I also have an Engel. I think I can't remember the cheaper version of the Fireball or the Powerball. And that's like the first proper new amp that I've ever had. I got it for my 30th actually. And that's something that I remember when I was a kid and went to guitar shops. That's the amp I always tried because that sounded the best. I was pretty stoked to get that one.
And my last question for you pretty much is, we live in a time period where me and Ed always talk about this on the show, is it seems like, we grew up in a period where people put out albums, full records. And now with people's attention spans are like fucking, 2 songs, skip. Even this podcast, we do 2-hour podcasts where in a world where people want information in 10 minutes, for you personally, like with Abhorration and stuff, you'll keep on making records till the end, right? You're not ever planning. Sometimes I hear bands saying, we're not going to do, I'm sure you've heard it too. We're not going to do records anymore, man. How do you feel about that? And what's your opinion on it?
I remember me and Arild, we were talking about it a couple of years ago about just doing EPs, just because it's more fun to make and it's easier to record because it's not as much pressure. But Øyvind was very against that idea, and I agree with him now. Like it's as a band, it's more comfortable making EPs, but what you end up remembering is always the records. At least I do. There's a few EPs, of course, like Fear for Blood and couple of others that I go back to, but most of the good EPs people forget, I think. You remember the best EPs and you remember the best demos, but you don't remember the pretty good demos and EPs. And you want, of course, like as a band, you want to release stuff that people remember, that people go back to. And then I think albums makes the most sense. Probably for the younger generation, maybe they're not interested in full lengths, but that's the only proper release in my mind.
I agree, man. Well, dude, Magnus, first of all, dude, I have to say thank you, man. I think I talked to you a couple months ago about coming on here, and I really appreciate you doing it, dude. And anybody who wants to find anything to do with Abhorration, where would you send them?
Well, we have a Facebook page, and we have a Bandcamp. But then I guess if you want to buy anything, it would be Invictus, and there's a few different like small labels around that has released some tapes and some shirts. I don't know if you can get them anymore, but it's either Invictus or you can buy shit from us if you see us live.
Dude, anything you want to say on your way out?
Well, I'd like to tell all the death metal people out there that you have to remember to listen to thrash metal as well.
That's right. Hey, dude, I really appreciate this, man, too.
Yeah, no problem.
That's been killer. And, like I said, you're a guy, there's not much interviews out there. Like you can see some print interviews, but not much audio interviews. So I think, it's totally cool you came on here, and looking forward to the next, obviously. You're always welcome on the show. I'm hoping we'll see you either in Tampa or Lithuania. I do plan on probably traveling this year to see you guys live, so I'm over in Europe, but like you were saying, it's kind of easy to jump on a plane here and fly, it's cheap tickets and, definitely in the plans. So dude, thanks again, man.
Yeah, no problem at all.
I'll say goodbye to you in a minute. On the way out of here, we're going to play Abhorration, The Grace of Immolation. What can you tell us about this track?
Well, it's a slow track, and if you like some, at least in Europe, slightly obscure American black metal, then you might recognize something.
There you go. This is Abhorration with The Grace of Immolation. Thanks again, Magnus. Be back on the Tampa Morgue after this track.
of abomination. Satisfied the devouring God to deafening cries and lamentation. Before the angle above, the braceable empathy of the abhorrent, the devouring men at the heart. Open the place of blazing torment. Placed into the arms of the Titan, an offering to fall humble. Feel the grace of immolation, senseless human Hecatomb. Taker of spring, accept appropriations and offerings. Grant of salvation, the grace of immolation. Under the burning altar into the bowels of all, the victory is adoration, revering. Demon heretical awesome, a feet on the pure. It is the life of the children, consumed beyond. The children, the sustenance of the god, drown the cries of mother, and complete the ritual of Valentine.
And that was The Grace of Immolation from Abhorration. And I want to thank Magnus for hanging out on the Tampa morgue. And episode 110 is in the books. Mr. Webb is back with us. What is up, Webb?
What is up, brother? I'm back. I am back.
Yeah, back, man. How was the festivities?
Great. Great. I love spending money.
24 years of marriage, dude. That's
25.
You know,
25.
25.
Quarter of a century, bro.
Yep.
Almost half my life. I've been married.
And next year we'll try not to book anybody on the same day. But,
Listen, man, I have 3 wonderful children. I have a great
That's
life.
right, yeah.
I have a podcast. I've been in some great bands. My life is great.
You got the new monstrosity. We can't tell anybody when, but you
I
got a lot
can't
of shit
tell
going
anybody.
on, man.
if you want to hear it, $24.99. I can give you a 20-second snippet.
Actually, I've been selling it for $9.99.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
didn't
you
want
have.
to tell you.
I'm sure you have.
But yeah, man. No, it was a killer episode. I want to thank Magnus for hanging out. Gave us the whole history of Aberration. Talked about some Hecatomb, some Condor, some Mayans Hill. Played music from all those projects. So, and again, obviously, if you've listened this far, now you're alert to Aberration. If you weren't before, but fucking awesome band and great. I was talking to him about this. The album cover is fucking awesome that they have for Demonolatry. So has the whole package. I was talking with Magnus, and we've talked about it a million times, Ed. It's an album that I personally would pick up just for the album cover to check it out. And that back in the day, that's what we did.
Pretty much. That's how I learned about 90% of the bands in the early days, unless word of mouth. So that was how you did it. Cool cover or cool name. The two of them, and if they had both, you were definitely grabbing that bitch.
And with Abhorration, man, I was telling Magnus, the logo's awesome. I mean, it's like I said, it's the whole package, and it's funny because everything comes full circle, as we always say on this show. And when I was talking to Magnus, we talked about, we had Sergeant Salston on here from Death Hammer, and when we had him on the show, he was heading out to the festival to go watch Abhorration because they're all friends and stuff. So, and when I was speaking to him tonight, I was like, "Oh yeah, dude, that was the same day he was going to see you guys in a few hours when he was pounding beers at his apartment."
He was crushing some beers, but I was watching him crush beers, and I'm thinking, "And you're going out?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going out to drink more."
By then,
he said, "I'm going out to drink some more beers.
Well,
I'm going to get
Death
hammered."
Hammer,
I'm
such
like,
a killer band.
I would have already been fucking hammered off the first beer he drank, and yeah, I mean. Yeah. And you know what? Just keep in mind, you said it to me this morning before we even did the podcast, and we've been saying it for weeks and months, that we're getting people who don't do interviews.
And I think that's the bands that come on here, hopefully, and I think they do realize that even some bands that we're lining up now don't do this kind of stuff, come on these shows, and they've given us which is, I totally appreciate it. They're going to give us their time. And like I said, I feel like we respect everything that we do and they do. And I think that shows in the product, or I hope it does. Stan, me and Ed, hey, shit, you might be listening to this show now. Me and Ed are like 6 feet under. You never know. But that's what this show is made for, is to kind of, yeah, hopefully not anytime soon, but it's made for the people to learn about the band's history and to look outside of the box, basically, and kind of realize where people come from. It's like a timeline, a tree, a family tree, and a lot of the bands are connected. And as we always say, it all ties together. We know that from doing this show, and we appreciate everybody who does come on here and give us their time. And we do try to make it the best experience possible for them. And we do appreciate our listeners. And Ed, 110. I mean, I say, we get out of here. We'll be back next week. We've been doing it weekly for almost 3 years now, and no sign of stopping.
Nope. This is our time capsule. Remember in school when you would bury something and somebody would dig it up 25 years later or 20 years later? This is our time capsule, man. This is what we do. For now, you could go to Spotify, Apple, anywhere there's podcasts, the thetampamorgue@gmail.com for email if you want to send us question or a letter like Ricardo did. Instagram for the socials, that's the main one that Tony absolutely kills. We do have a Facebook, but who gives a fuck? Yeah, pretty much that's the info there. So now we can make like a tree and get the fuck out of here.
Yes, sir. And as always, as we always say, thank you for everybody giving us your time.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed it. Magnus, again, if you're listening to this, appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to the next Abhorration record. And yeah, best of luck to everybody, man. Have a killer week. We'll see you next week on the Tampa Morgue. Have a good one, Ed. Peace.
You too, brother. See ya.
This is King Fally from Deceased, and you just listened to another episode of the Tampa Morgue. Tune in next week and stay fucking dead.